we are looking at how we can talk to her about this. And so the big question is, how do we explain to our 5-year-old that her daddy has a significant advanced cancer in a way that she can understand the gravity of that and the weight of that, while at the same time balancing fears and concerns that something terrible might happen tomorrow?
Well, is she asking questions?
So we've kind of phrased it with her that her daddy has an owie, right? So whenever he does go through chemotherapy or have surgeries, the chemotherapy is a 3-day long process. So he brings the medication home with him. And so her big thing is she just doesn't understand why she can't do certain things with daddy, why we have to be careful. And she just doesn't really understand when it's going to go away.
The most important, imagine that you have a child and the child is watching a scary movie with you and they aren't sure how to react because the person that they're identifying with is in danger. What you tell them to do is not to be scared and not to close their eyes, but to watch the hero of the movie because they will figure out how to get through it. And so you can explain to your daughter what's going on in the most sophisticated language that she can understand, that people get hurt, that people get sick, that's the case for her, that's the case for her parents, it's the case for everyone that you love, but that you can face it together and you can cope with it and contend with it and pull out things that are good and enjoy your time together if you hang together as a family and pay careful attention. See, because you can't hide the truth from her. The truth is the terrible truth. And it's also uncertain. I mean, your family has been dealing with this for a multi-year period. You have an indefinite period of uncertainty interlaced with suffering ahead of you. And she has that to face as well. And her understanding of that will develop. What she needs to know is that people's ability to contend with trouble is almost unlimited if they face it squarely, honestly, and have support. And then practically speaking, I would also say that the way that a family can deal with such things when the circumstances become overwhelming is to shorten their time frame of concern. The more uncertainty there is in the future, the shorter the time frame over which you start to perceive. So sometimes when your life is stable and everything is promising, you can think out 5 years. Sometimes you can think out 1 year, sometimes a month, sometimes a week, sometimes the next day, sometimes the next minute. And so as the crisis intensifies, the period of time that you attend to shortens. And in real periods of crisis, you shorten your time frame to the next hour or the next minutes, and you focus on making the pathway that you have to walk, painful as it is, as the least like hell it can possibly be. And now I've seen, so when my wife and I in particular were dealing with my daughter's illness and our own intense illnesses, we would shorten our time frames certainly to the day. Let's get through the day. Let's not bring in any other concerns that aren't absolutely paramount, and let's treat each other very carefully. And we also did things that you might find useful too, like we had rules, my wife and I, when we were dealing with my daughter's illness, which was chronic, not to talk about it after a certain time at night. It's like, we can't be neck deep in this absolute bloody catastrophe 100% of the time, because all that'll happen is we'll burn ourselves to a crisp, and we have a long haul in front of us in all likelihood. So I don't remember exactly what the rule was. I think it was we didn't talk about anything that was illness related after 8 o'clock at night. And so, you can set aside times to intently focus on the catastrophe at hand. And then you want to set aside times with your daughter to spend attentive time with her and schedule that in every day. But most important is to let her know that you can face things. She has a tremendous challenge in front of her, especially for someone that young. The only thing you can do about it is fortify her belief that she can handle it and you can all handle it together, no matter what comes. And that's true, especially if you're extremely careful and you strive not to add additional complication to the situation. Mick?
I don't know what this lady's faith is, but the only way I really managed to handle your illness was through faith. And I wasn't like a Christian at that point, but I had this really strong belief that everything was going to be okay. And that might have even been a naive belief. It might have been what I needed to believe in order to get through it, but that's what got me through it. And now I would say the only way to deal with how horrible illness can be and like life sometimes when you are trying to figure out how to survive the next hour is having some sort of faith, because it is, at least for me, it is too heavy. This world is too heavy.
I think the part of that isn't naive is the idea that if you're facing upward and trying to do the right thing, even under very difficult circumstances, that you maximize the possibility that you'll find a path that isn't like the ultimate hell, at least that. And I think that's right. The deep stories that I've looked at, the story of Job in particular, which is a story of intense suffering, is predicated on the idea that under the worst of circumstances, so that would be unjust suffering, because that's the worst of circumstances, unjust, intense suffering, or even worse, unjust, intense suffering directed towards someone who's been conducting themselves well, is that you are called upon not to lose faith in yourself and your value, and not to lose faith in the spirit of being, right? In God. It's a moral requirement not to lose faith. So that's actually a form of courage rather than a form of naivety. And so you can have a naive faith in the future, but if that's disrupted by tragedy or malevolence, that tends to be traumatic. If you have a courageous faith, what you understand is that there's more to you than has yet been revealed, and that you don't know the future. And so despair is a sin. And I think that's right. And you can think about it, you can just think about it practically, If you're suffering and suffering unjustly, and then you lose faith in yourself and the world, you've taken the unjust suffering and multiplied it. And if you confront that instead with the faith that a pathway can be found, or at least the least terrible pathway can be found, well, then you're in a position to take whatever offering comes to you in the midst of the suffering. And there can be lots, like I saw when your mom was dealing with the death of her mother and her father, her family pulled together. I've seen that in the aftermath of my parents' death. Like my brother and sister and I, who were pretty close, have been working to be even closer afterwards. So you can do that. You can pull together. And that's what you look for. And you practice your gratitude even in the midst of catastrophe, and you aim up and trudge forward. And the fact that you and your mom didn't lose faith when I was so ill and was wishing that things would just come to an end for years, that was certainly a huge part of what got me through it.
Good. I knew you were going to pull through.
Yeah,
I don't know why,
yeah,
but I did.
Well, your mom said the same thing.
Faith.
Yeah.